found that when I moved into religious life, it really was the opportunity to explore my own vocation in priestly life. And it really was just a different way to utilize some of the skills that I gained in the business world in a new way, in a new light.
When I came to DC, I met a lot of different religious groups, and the one I seemed to click with the most right away was the Oblates. And I like the spirituality of Francis de Sales. I like the guys who were living there, and that connection that really it resonated in my heart. And Salesian spirituality, I think, is all about the heart.
Although it was a big transition to go from kind of business into religious life, it really was one of the best decisions I ever could have made, because I really feel like I'm fully alive and fully doing those things that I've always wanted to do in my life.
My present ministry is to work as the vocation director for the Wilmington, Philadelphia province of the Oblates of St. Francis de Sales. The application process for the Oblates of St. Francis de Sales includes a number of different things. The first is very simply an application form. It's biographical in nature. It includes an essay, a who am I essay, if you will. The second thing is that you would check in with members of the admissions committee, 5 or 6 men in the Oblates of St. Francis de Sales, who would interview you. And they would ask you questions about your background, your work ethic, things that you dream of for the church, for your own life, whatever it might be. After you've interviewed with those members of the admissions committee, there's what we call a candidate assessment, where you visit with a psychologist so that that person may assess your ability to maintain appropriate boundaries in relating in ministry, to make sure that you're a healthy man. After that process of candidate assessment, interviewing with the admissions committee, a background check, and the biographical application form, there's a recommendation made after the admissions committee meets, and that's made to the provincial. And then the provincial either accepts or rejects the recommendation of the admissions committee, and then I get the great responsibility of informing the candidate that he's been accepted to the Oblates of St. Francis de Sales.
Formation program, it's been a challenge. It's also helped me to grow quite a bit. I think I've improved, my prayer life a lot. We have a focused prayer schedule that we come together usually 2 to 3 times a day to pray in common.
My role as Director of Formation is one that I am ultimately responsible for overseeing the formation program from when a person enters the Oblates of St. Francis de Sales until either they take final vows or are ordained as a priest. The first step is the pre-novitiate. In the past we've called it a postulancy, but it's a year where a person spends living with the Oblates formally they have applied and they're in the Oblates, but they're observing and discerning and learning by living with us. The second step is the novitiate experience, which is a formal year in which they are studying the spirituality, the lifestyle, the vows, learning as intensely and deeply as they can what it means to be an Oblate of St. Francis de Sales. And it's at the end of that year that they would take the formal vows, the solemn vows of chastity, poverty, and obedience. The third step is the post-novitiate experience, and this is where the experience can be a little different for someone who chooses to be a brother or a priest. Certainly if one chooses to be a priest, then they have some more formal steps to complete in terms of their theological preparation for priesthood. In that time, for both a priest or a brother candidate, there would be some time for an apostolic experience, doing some ministry with the lay people to see how that part of their lifestyle is. And the distinction between a priest and a brother is, in regards to the religious life piece, there is no difference. We live in community together, we share the vows together, we have the same communal life experience. Difference comes when one looks at what they're called to do in terms of specific ministries. So an oblate priest would then have the identity and the ministry of the sacraments in regards to priesthood, whereas a brother would not. And that's the primary difference there.
When I met the Oblates, when I met the people in the Oblates, I knew this is a group of people that I want to spend my life with. The way they were spreading the charism, the way they were celebrating sacraments, the way they were living their lives. That's why I decided I want to join this group, and I think that's been one of the great gifts of my vocation.
I think I knew that I had a religious vocation because when I would think about it, I would get excited. It helped my imagination. I got upbeat, I got more joy-filled as I dreamed or fantasized or imagined myself as an oblate, as a priest, as somebody who's serving others in the church.
I think a lot of people, and I definitely fell into this trap, expect some sort of huge sign in the heavens saying, Pat, be a priest, or be an oblate, or whatever. But it doesn't come, at least for 99.9% of us. But the way the signs we do get are the people who are supportive, people saying, you know, I think you have the gifts that would make you a very good minister in the church. And if we're open to where God can act and through different people, I think that's a great way for us to see the will of God.
For an individual who wants to come in today, I think they have to understand that you have to be a person of sense of humor. You have to be a person who understands your weaknesses and willing to work on those weaknesses. And also a person that understands the virtue of love.
I would say to someone thinking about it, go for it, try it. I think you may be surprised at the great gift it can be to join a seminary program, to join the Oblates.
One of the things I would say to somebody, and I do say to people, is be patient with the process. And the other piece of advice I would offer is come and see. Take some time to come and live with us, spend some time with us, and in that they would find good advice on how to and what it is like to be an oblate.
For a young guy interested in religious life, I would suggest to him that being open is probably just the best thing that he can do. When I was thinking about it, that was the best advice I received from some wise oblates and some wise friends who weren't oblates. Be open to the possibility of it, be open to other possibilities, and try to see where God is leading you. And the way God leads us, I think, is definitely through other people. It's when we're called to religious life, to holy orders, it's the people of God are calling you forth, inspiring you to do what God has called you to do.
When I work with people, and I do work with a lot of people thinking about religious life and priesthood, I always say to them, you got to try it. You know, you have to say yes and experience that.
I think the best advice to give someone who's thinking about being an oblate is to really follow their heart, just to be open to the presence of God in their life and to God's calling, and just to allow themselves to take the time and to grow in a relationship with God and a healthy relationship with other people, and really give the calling a chance.
Whether a man chooses to become an oblate of St. Francis de Sales doesn't so much matter as much as the experience they have when they encounter the oblates. I think we are a warm, inviting group, and a lot of men, even though they don't choose to be oblates, experience that, and because of that, they come to know the church a little more fully.
The people we currently have are doing so many good things in the church, and they motivate me to continue my vocation and to continue on this journey because we're doing it together. And I think it's through them, through their enthusiasm, through the people that relate well to them, that I get excited.
People always say, you know, oh, it must be really hard to be a priest and all that. And it's not. It has its challenges, no more challenging than any other vocation.
To make my first vows was one of the most magnificent experiences of my life.
I place the profession cross over the head of the newly professed, and I say, you know, receive this cross and you become the Christ, because we don't have the corpus on the cross.
I wear my profession cross that I received on that day by Father Jim Greenfield, and each day that I put this cross on, it reminds me of the vow that I've made and the opportunity to get out there and to serve people, and it also reminds me of the hope for the future that I have for the church. So I wear this with pride, and it's a great reminder of that great day.